Hello, my name is Paul Guillory, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I am an associate professor at UC Berkeley, and um, I am a trainer in training in EFT, emotionally focused couples therapy. I've written a book on EFT and working with African American couples. And so my brief talk today is on integrating emotionally focused couples therapy with African American couples. And essentially, there are three lenses in that regard, three points of view that I'm always keeping in mind. One is the emotional perspective. The other is the attachment perspective, and also the cultural perspective. Um, the in the emotional aspect, I'm paying attention to what we refer to in EFT as the reactive emotions. This is part of our day-to-day emotional reactions to our partner that uh, in our interactions are sources of disconnections and conflicts. Um, the other part of emotion is our attachment emotions. These are our alarm, deeper reactions about the state of our relationships, whether or not our relationship is safe, and how vulnerable we are for its survival. Uh, the second lens is the attachment uh, point of view. And this is the essence of the EFT view of love. We all, what attachment science has taught us about love is that we all need secure bases, that felt sense of belonging to each other. We also need safe harbors, that felt sense that we can, in times of distress, be comforted by our loved ones. These emerging concepts of secure base and safe harbor have come over the last maybe 30 years of science, looking at how we are bonding as human, bonding uh, social um, beings as human beings. Now, our this interplay of having a secure base and safe harbor has formed some concepts that are essential to the way EFT and really attachment science has begun to think about love. That is, there is a need to be accessible to our loved ones, that our inner self is somehow accessible to each other to understand. And of course, these are on continuums and various degrees. But the greater our accessibility, the better. And that our loved ones will be responsive to our internal needs and reactions and so on. And so there is essentially a emotional call and response that takes place within couple relationships. And when that is going well, that is, that the response is related to the internal needs of our partners, there is a felt sense of having a secure base, a place that we can operate from and know that we are solid there, and a safe harbor, a place we can go to even with our most distressing and vulnerable feelings. The key to this is emotional engagement, so that these three operate together: accessibility, responsiveness, and emotional engagement. And to the extent that we are emotionally engaged. It provides for a secure, loving bond. Culturally, African Americans have a greater need for accessibility, responsiveness, or emotional engagement, or otherwise ARE, because we live in generally a hostile social environment. There's a greater stress load on our bodies because there is racial distress in the world. There is also sometimes an urgency to recover from emotionally distressed cues that are out in the world, and our relationships can serve as a buffer, both as a way of preparing us for the next day, but bolstering our self-regard in a general way. Now, African Americans, of course, we differ in terms of our racial identity. Some of us are very secure in how we view ourselves and how we view other African Americans, and for that matter, other cultures as well. There's a degree of flexibility and security and understanding there's good, bad, and ugly in all races. Some of us are more insecure, and in that there have been scholars, of course, who have written about the insecurities as a legacy of slavery, as a legacy of Jim Crow and the Black laws, all of which has been to have us look at ourselves in some deficit or inferior way. And some of us carry the burden of those years of propaganda and racial disparaging views of African Americans in our heart and soul. And to the extent that those insecurities, those raw spots are within our points of view, it also creates distress in the relationship if our partners vary in that. And sometimes there is diversity within couples in terms of racial identity, on the continuum of one partner being more secure in their racial identity and some partners being more insecure. I think in the middle, where there is some degree of security and insecurity, right, we have what I think of as really strong views about how African Americans should be. Afrocentricity might be involved in that point of view, or definite ideas about how black men or black women should operate. It's not inherently, these are not inherently bad or insecure or secure points of view. It depends on, to me, how flexible we are in terms of that. That is, some people, for example, African Americans grow up in African American communities, and what has been referred to as the sort of victim system of operating by scholars is a point of view that's fostered in the hood, that we have to get our own, and we have to do that regardless of who it hurts. Now, to the extent that one is rigid in that point of view, we can be harmful to how we treat our loved ones in our relationships. To the extent that we're flexible in that, we understand that the world is unfair to African Americans, and we have to be more vigilant about how we conduct our business or how we interact with people. But the flexibility allows us also to be more loving and soft, as opposed to hard and demanding to our partners. So within that middle group, it's a question of flexibility, but also about how love and kindness and gentleness plays a role in interpersonal relationships. My goal as an African American EFT therapist is to play with the interplay of emotions, of attachment, and a cultural lens that looks at racial identity and the diversity that might exist with a couple, and how they react to racial distress cues that they might experience in their lives. I wrote a book in this regard that will be published by Routledge. The title of the book is Emotionally Focused Couples Therapy for African American Couples. It's due out in June of 2021. I try to look at the interplay of all these factors in promoting love and with African American couples. I hope this has been helpful.